teaches us, okay.
Sorry.
Got it. Sorry. It teaches us how to survive and how to be intertwined with Mother Earth and what her offerings provide to us in a seasonal basis. And it's just daunting to our tribe. It's a way of sustenance. It's a way of survival. And it's a way of cohabitating with Mother Earth and our surroundings. The 13 moon calendar represents 13 moons in the celestials. And also, we also have the moon phases. Each moon represents the 13 discs on a snapping turtle. The local turtles in our area represent those months, and then the outside, the perimeter of the turtle as 28 days. Okay, so let's move on here. So we'll be covering the full moon calendar, the 13 calendar, the seasonal shifts of the moons, the phases, fish moon, seasonal new year, the planting moon, and the returning of sustenance. Again, like I said, immersing yourself into the natural world around you, realigning yourself with Turtle Island as you cycle through the seasons. In the Northeast, we have beautiful seasons, right? This is an area where you're allowed to really view and get involved with the things that are going on around you. And the seasonal change is very important in the Northeast area in particular, for the Wampanoag people, the Abenaki people, the Nipmuc people, all the way up to Canada, down to the Virginias and the North, mostly the North Carolina area. We all share these seasons, whether it's 3 seasons, four seasons, but this particular season is the rebirth. So here you have the full circle calendar that has been presented, and it's now out to press. You can purchase the digital copy or the physical copy. Go to the link, my website link, and this here is the cover of the design, and these are the moons here. So today we're going to be talking about the first moon, the fish moon, the planting moon, as you see, the strawberry moon, the buck moon. All these other moons are all important to this particular area of the Northeast arm of Turtle Island. So, here we have the seasonal shifts. You have the moon phases, spring equinox. For us, the new year is the rebirth of the earth, right? Mother Earth is coming alive. Animals are coming out of hibernation. All right. You have the earth warming up. We have longer daylight, right? We have the spring equinox, okay, and the melting of the ice. When we had a lot of ice, it was very, very important to us, because one of the fascinating things some people may not know is when the ice would break, we would go and go to the water's edge, particularly fresh water, and we'd go up into the estuaries, and we would take rocks out of our boats that we call machoons. And at this time, we'd also be taking those rocks out, and that boat would become buoyant. That boat would float to the surface, and then we would start setting up our fish weirs, okay? Because when the fish show up, it is very important to us as a ceremony, collecting those fish, harvesting those fish, because of our food sustenance. And during the winter, as you know, you lose the vitamin D. So the vitamins from the omega 3s, from the oily fish, the adjumous fish, the herring, the owleye, the bluebacks were very important to us. So all these seasonal shifts, you have the ospreys coming back, okay? Here we have the ospreys coming back, foretelling the fish moon. This is telling us, hey, the fish are on their way. They're coming. They're going to their spawning grounds. This is a picture that I took just recently, and you see it. You know, the osprey is rebuilding the nest and getting ready for preparation. What else do you have? Right? You have mating. You have the turkeys. Turkeys are very active right now. They have been for several months. You have the first flowers popping up. You have crocus that are flowing, with the bright colors are showing up around the areas, and the return of the herring. In our particular area, we have they're referred to as river herring. The first herring that show up are the owleye. The owleye are very important to us as well. We eat the eggs. We would pickle them. We'd also fry them, and we also would smoke the fish. Later in the season, the blueback herring show up, and they're a little bit smaller fish, and they look a little bit different. Their eyes are different size. That's one way that you can tell the difference between those two river herrings. And here you have the golden finch. All right, you have the maple saplings. You have these buds coming out early in the spring. There's other things that you can harvest as well. Probably in another couple weeks, you can harvest the pine. You have the rebirth on the white pine. You can make teas out of those, harvesting those. Another thing, you can go below ground, below Mother Earth. The early spring is a good time to harvest many types of roots. Here you have dandelion, burdock. Right, these are all excellent things to harvest. The fish moon, that is the important time of the year. Here's a picture from the other night. I took this myself. Feel free to, on Instagram, all my photos are on Waban Studio on Instagram. Please follow that page. And here we have the planting moon. Okay, this will be our second moon. All right, and at this time you should already have your fertilizer all set. Okay. The temperature is definitely rising at this point. You're getting close to some of the last frost. We've had seems like a pretty decent warm spring. Within 5 to 10 degrees is very useful. The water temperature is really important as well for the fish, but the soil temperature and the sunlight is important, so that the incubation stage of these seeds that you're going to be putting in the ground have good fertilizer and a good area. Here you have it, the spring shoots coming up. A lot of people, you might see the wild onion, the smell, the scents are a big impact on this time of the year. This time of the year. You also have the southwest winds. Okay, Waban is one of my native names, and it means wind. And the southwest winds change, and what that brings is the warmer air. And with that, you also have the sunlight, and all these things are all under observation constantly. One of the practices for our people, we did eat things raw, of course. But we boiled a lot of things and steeped a lot of herbs and spices to extract and create oils from a lot of these plants that are in our area. Again, here you have the plantings of the seed. Pay close attention to the lows, the low temperatures, which are important. Making sure you get rid of all the areas that are going to have shade, and making sure that you have your all your seeds in preparation where they're going to go is important. And to follow that, on the second hand, you have the fish, the stripers, the haddock, the sea bass. They're all spawning. The mackerel will be coming around shortly, and the flounders. A lot of people do like to go out and catch trout at this time. Trout is a good staple of our diet as well. And on the north side, particularly, I don't know too much. I haven't heard too much about the smelt runs, but the rainbow smelts is a big time right now, especially from Hingham, Scituate, and those areas. They really like the cold water, all the way up into Maine. So these are some other ones that you can keep an eye on, stinging nettles, dandelions, violets. Again, you're replenishing all the things that you were missing, okay? And during these moon phases, they're important to know where these different species of plants are, these species of animals, because again, Mother Earth is rebirthing this. It's a gift from Mother Earth to provide you sustenance, to provide you balance in the grand scheme of things. And it's a teaching and learning moment, because certain areas there might be a drought, certain areas there might be an abundance, and it's important that you don't over harvest some of these areas because of the education piece for the next year, or for the next 7 generations. But it's also a 3-to-1 ratio that we take on as indigenous people for harvesting. One is for the creator, one is for yourself, and then one is for Mother Earth. So it's a part of a ceremony and a collaboration with oneself to understand and respect these plants and where to harvest them, so that you can continue to go there season by season. But Mother Earth will provide you these things as needed, and only during certain seasons. So we have several different social media posts and happenings going on, and I like to share a lot of these. Feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and also I have a co-business that I started with my wife. It's called Good Dawn Rising. Please see that website, as well as the Facebook and Instagram page, for more collaborations or presentations or anything like that. I think that's it.
Great, thank you, Marcus.
Sure.
We just have a couple of comments here, and then certainly want people to feel free to ask questions. Russ sent, first of all, a link to the interview that you recently had in January on The Point, and so people can go listen to that, and that's a great it was a great
thank you
episode there. It was also just remarked that one of his favorite flowers, starting to pop up around now, usually comes up right sort of full bloom around Earth Day, and another couple of weeks is the Mayflower, or the trailing arbutus, and I know that's something that I always look for in the patch that I have in front of in the woods in front of my house, and it's always sort of special to pull, dig up through the oak leaves and find these little hidden treasures there. So anyway, so that's great. So if anybody would like, has questions, they can either put it in the chat box or just unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, I prefer unmute. Let's have a discussion.
Okay, let's do it.
Feel free to unmute and ask some questions here.
Hi, Marcus, it's Russ. Good morning. Thank
How
you
you
for
doing,
your,
man?
I'm
Good
good.
dawn.
So I am so grateful for the indigenous knowledge that has trickled down to me about the technical term would be phenology, but it's basically looking to Mother Nature for clues about what's going on. And you mentioned some of them and how one thing might be a clue for another thing, like the osprey returning is a clue, hey, the fish are running.
Correct,
And so there's so much wisdom there that I think we all benefit by paying closer attention to. And whether, for example, another one of my favorites is the shadbush or the serviceberry, which also begins to bloom early in the spring, earlier than, let's say, the crab apples or the apple trees. And the blooming of the shadbush is also giving you a hint about the indigenous fish running in the rivers. In this case, they actually named the fish the shad
right.
as the one to be looking for. But sometimes the bloom also gives you an important piece of information. And in this case, the blooming of the shad, it's the plant's way of showing you where it is, because its gift, the fruit, is available in the summer. And as you know, the color of that fruit is purple, and it's a hard color to see at a distance. So you almost need to know where the plant is ahead of time.
Right.
So you know to check it in the summer and look for the ripe fruit. So it's really important to be paying attention to nature at times other than the harvesting time, because sometimes that's where the important information is.
Right. I definitely agree to that, and actually, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because so each moon usually prepares you. It's saying there's a prepping. You have to get ready for this particular moon phase, or the next the weaning or the waxing moon. So, what does the Gregorian calendar teach us? Right, it kind of teaches us opposite of that. It teaches you, okay, on April 5th, this is going to happen. It kind of forecasts the future, but anything could happen between then, right? And the way Mother Earth is, it's more of a continuity. It's more fluid, depending on the weather, depending on the winds, right? Depending on there's so many variables. But you have to be prepared, weeks in advance. You have to be prepared the moon prior, right? So it's given that respect to that, to that process. That's very important. So thank you for pointing that out, for sure.
Sure. And the other thing that you the wisdom that you share with us that I value so highly is the importance of forbearance and restraint, which is, as you know, fundamental to Native American teachings. Because so much of us say, just take as much as you want, and that is so antithetical to respecting the plant and the role of the plant in the environment in terms of our other fellow creatures relying upon it for food or medicine, and the importance of the next generation so that plant continues to thrive in the locations where we're identifying it. And so it's not only knowing when something might be available to harvest, but also knowing not to take too much.
Right. Yeah, there's another thing that we adopt as well, is harvesting in different seasons, but particularly, for instance, like when we go and harvest the white cedar poles for our homes, okay, the male buds that are on the cedars, if we're taking the limbs off, the green part, the limbs, we put those back into the swamp so that they can reseed. If we just need the poles, we take the poles out. So there's always, being cognitive of the seed, and then when they're germinating, what time of year. So for us, we typically like to harvest this time of year to reconstruct our homes or to use the poles for things. Also, the inner bark, we would make baskets out of the inner bark. So at the same time, we're using everything till its full potential. There's literally no waste. And I think that is a big part of that as well. To leave behind no waste, but at the same time, you're giving back to the earth. You're allowing those berries to fall back into the swamps to regerminate, or the seeds to fall back into those swamps.
Right. Well, that's the whole concept of reciprocity. It's the relationship with the plants that you accept the gifts gratefully, but you have to give back in return. Otherwise, it's not a relationship.
Right, and that's the whole thing about the ideology about the 13 moon calendar is to respecting the location of where you're at for and foremost. You're on Turtle Island. What is Mother Earth saying? What does Mother Earth have to offer? What are all her creatures telling us to do? What is our flow of life? And those things, those key points are very important, definitely seasonally, and then based off of these moon phases. In the Southwest, they usually mostly adopt the sundial because they don't have the 4 seasons like we do here. Different parts, the Northwest, they have their own routines and rituals. But again, it's based off of your primal location and what are you doing in those particular seasons. And then what is created by that? You have natural phenomenon that occurs. So your language is getting fine-tuned, your storytelling, the arts, the cultural aspects, and all those different facets that are important to the survival.
That's great. I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so please, anyone,
Okay.
interrupt me, but I could absolutely keep going. So thank you so much for mentioning dandelion and burdock and stinging nettle. Those are 3 of my favorite wild edibles to gather in the spring. And I'm curious to know, what are you doing with them? Share if you would, how you're preparing them and eating them and stuff.
Okay, yeah. So actually, I forgot. I actually had that written down. I was going to add that to the slide. But the dandelion roots are high in nutrients. They're gentle. Like you can create a tea. The dandelion root itself tastes. I don't know if anybody's just tried it, but it's more of like a coffee taste. It's very dark. But it cleanses the digestive system, and it cleanses the liver and things like that. Let's see, what else is there?
Marcus, do you want me to jump on?
Yes, sure. Oh, this is my wife, Casey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Casey. I have the baby, so I'm just going to stay with my camera off. Marcus is usually out fishing, hunting, and stuff, so I do more of the plant preparation in the house. Right now I am doing, I like to do a mix of the dandelion root, burdock root, and chicory root as a coffee alternative. It's great in spring because it's getting everything moving in your body and detoxing from the heaviness of the diet in the winter. But also the dandelion is putting out new leaves right now, which are less bitter early in the season. So those are good to add to salad. You can stir fry them if you're not really big on raw. As well, stinging nettle is one you need to cook before eating. You need to blanch it thoroughly, wear gloves when harvesting it because it is, some people find it pleasant. Most people do not find it pleasant. So that you can make a pesto out of. I've seen people bake it into cookies, which I've never done, but it makes a really pretty green color as well. Violets are great to candy, and kind of, you can make add it to your cakes or cupcakes. You can also make a vinegar, which is a really pretty purple color if you use a white vinegar, but it's a little better health benefit wise if you use an apple cider vinegar, and you can use that as a salad dressing for your dandelion salad. You can add violet leaves into your salad. So there's a lot of ways to incorporate these new growth in the springtime.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Casey. One other thing I wanted to share was the peepers. Those are back. Those are really active, and that tells you too. The warmer weather is there. They become active. They come out of the mud. They come out of the water. And yeah, anybody ever hear the peepers recently? Dusk and dawn, you hear them really active. Mostly, I feel it's mostly dusk in my area.
So I'll keep going.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So allow me, if you would, to share what I do with stinging nettle and dandelion and burdock. So
Okay.
As you know, perhaps some of the folks on the Zoom don't know, burdock is a biennial plant. It has a 2-year life cycle. And so the best time to get the root is between the first and second growing seasons. That's when it's going to be its biggest. So if you harvest it when it first comes up in the spring, they're pretty skinny. But if you wait until the fall, they get nice and fat. And then if you harvest, you can let them winter over and then harvest them like now in the spring as they're just beginning to leaf out, and the root is still great. But later on this year, that plant's going to develop a cylindrical flower stalk in the center and get quite tall, like 3 feet or sometimes higher, produce those magenta colored flowers, and then the round burrs get caught in your socks in the fall, and then the whole plant dies. So that's the life cycle of a burdock. So now is a good time to harvest the root, but I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of lazy. I'm a little bit too lazy to dig up burdock roots because they're really long, as you know. Yeah. And I pretty much guarantee for folks that try to do it that your patience might give out before the root does, because they just keep going and going. And so, yeah, and you can't just yank on the foliage, as you know, and just get a root out that way like you can on a carrot. You have to dig them up, because otherwise the roots will break on you. So what I often do instead of harvesting the roots is that I'll harvest that cylindrical flower stalk in June when it comes up, and it's about a foot and a half tall. And it takes about 10 seconds to just, whip out your knife, cut it off at ground level, lop off the top cluster leaves, and then you have this length of stalk about foot and a half long. And then I will peel the outer layer of those off because they're bitter and stringy. But the stalks are solid all the way through. So even after you trim the outer part off, you have a lot of food value left over. So at that stage, I just chop those peeled stems into 1/2-inch thick rounds and boil them in salted water till they're tender, about 7 minutes. And then you can just eat those chopped up pieces as a vegetable. It's delicious. Tastes somewhat like artichokes, because burdock and artichokes are related plants.
Yes, yeah.
Or
Jerusalem, like the Jerusalem artichokes.
The Jerusalem artichoke is also related.
Yeah.
The 3 of them are related.
Yeah.
And then you can, or if you're looking for something a little bit fancier to do with those boiled burdock pieces, you can throw them into spaghetti sauce. They're great that way. Or you can use them to make this appetizer that should be familiar to people. It's ordinarily you take artichoke hearts and Parmesan cheese and mayonnaise and breadcrumbs, and you mix it all together and you bake it in the oven, and it's a spread that you put on crackers. Well, I have found that you can substitute the boiled burdock flower stalk rounds for the artichoke hearts in that recipe, and it's very tasty and very easy to make.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I actually,
share it in the chat.
Yeah, I will. I will be happy to do that.
Definitely.
And okay, so going to dandelions, personally, my favorite part to eat on a dandelion are the unopened flower buds. And they are among my favorite vegetables, period, cultivated or wild. They're like a cross between corn, spinach, artichoke hearts, and Brussels sprouts. And now each little dandelion bud is teeny, they're only about a 1/4 inch in diameter. So you might be looking at one and say, well, great, these are yummy, but how am I going to feed my family with this teeny little dandelion bud?
Right.
So, but I have gone to places like organic farms, for example, where, you talk to the farmer first and you say, is it okay if I pick some of your dandelions? And they never say no to that.
Right.
And then I found that on the edges of the cultivated farm fields, the dandelion plants can get really big. And I have found plants with over 200 flower buds per plant.
Wow.
And then it does take a little while to pick them off, but you're finding plants like that. You can find, you can gather many cups worth of buds in, a short amount of time. And then so to prepare them, you just wash them off, like throw them in a bowl, wash them off, and then get a pot of water boiling in the stove. And as Casey mentioned, sometimes it's good to blanch things. And in this case, it's just to take off just a little bit of the bitterness on the dandelion buds. So you get a pot of water boiling in the stove, throw the buds in there and boil them for 60 seconds. That's it. That's all they need. And then you can incorporate them into like soups and omelets and casseroles. But before you do anything with them, before you even put any butter or salt on them, if you try them just plain, I think you'd be amazed at how good they are. And when I gather leaves, dandelion leaves, I'm basically gathering them at the same time as the buds and preparing them the same way.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, sure.
That was awesome.
All right, let me drop that recipe in the chat.
Sure.
And I'm taking the links, and I will send everybody a copy of all the various links that have been put into the chat box, along with Marcus's slides next week, and send that to you. Other folks have questions.
Are they in the written?
Right now, I think we're good so far. Marcus, I have a question for you.
Yes.
It's a beautiful weekend here, and those of us going to take a hike, take a walk someplace. You had the picture of the osprey, and Russ is mentioning how the the dandelions are just beginning to pop up now. What can we be looking for this weekend as we take a walk?
So I would again go visit these herring runs, and you may see the activity of gray blue herons showing up. There's some heron runs that actually have activity of the eagles. You have some passing by of some bald eagles activity. Just the other thing too is these locations are great to be visited in different seasons, because each season will teach you something else. So for instance, seeing scat from different animals, the natural buds that are coming up. There's the green buds that are coming up on the trees. You saw the red ones are already coming out on the maple trees. But definitely gravitate near the water's edge. Check out we have the full moon this last 3 days. You have astronomically high tide, astronomically lows. Go down to the bays and to the beaches at low tide, and you'll probably be able to pick up some remnants of deadfall, things that have washed ashore from the winter. Just get out and explore, really. The earth is an awakening stage, but you need that vitamin D, that sunlight, just to the atmosphere, the ambiance of just going back outside, and knowing your surroundings.
Well, I think on that note, just get out and explore. I think that's a
Right.
good mantra for us for this weekend.
sure.
So, so thank you so much, Marcus. It's it's always a pleasure to listen to you, and thank you to all of you who signed up. And as I said, I'll be sending folks the links that were posted in case you weren't able to catch them, as well as the slide deck early next week. And please, look at our other webinars, or as I say, our trail walks coming up this spring, and please stay in touch with the Chatham Conservation Foundation. Marcus, again, thank you very much. And everybody have a lovely weekend.
All
Thanks
right.
so
Thank you
much.
very much. Katavatosh. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.